It's a tough job, but somebody's got to drive them. That's this week on Motoring 2007.
TSN's Motoring 2007 is brought to you by Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
This week we're at the Barber Motorsports Park just outside of Birmingham, Alabama. Now most people know that one of the most beautiful golf courses in the world is Augusta National, home to the Masters. Well, George Barber, no relation to Skip, is the man who built this racetrack. And he wanted to create that same kind of atmosphere. He wanted this track to be as significant to car racing as Augusta is to golf. And most people will tell you there is no finer or more beautiful racetrack in North America than where we are today. And this track is also home to the Porsche driving school. But we're not here to take part in the school. You ready for this? We've been invited here to drive all the brand new '07 Porsche sports cars. How do we get so lucky, you ask? Well, let's find out.
Well, it's spring, and the young man's fancy turns to, among other things, sports cars. So we're having a press event that brings the media out to drive our 5 newest sports cars. Gives them an opportunity to compare the cars back to back to back to back to back on a fairly short period of time, but in a controlled performance atmosphere. So they really get a lot out of the day because they can see that while these are all Porsches and all have that wonderful Porsche performance DNA, they're also all perform very differently and they all feel very different. Starting from the least powerful to the most powerful, we have the new Cayman, we have the Boxster S, we have the 911 Targa 4S, we have the 911 GT3, and we have the 911 Turbo. And they're all 2007 models that have been released within the last year. As much as we trust our friends in the media, we just like to have some instructors along for to give them a few driving pointers, for example, and hopefully make them enjoy the day a little more. The newest is Patrick Long, which is the only American Porsche factory race car driver right now, up to the most experienced, which is Hurley Haywood, who is the most successful driver in the history of endurance sports car racing.
It's a lot easier to drive one of these things when you got the big man here, Hurley Haywood. I've been teaching him how to drive all day, truth be known.
I couldn't wait to get here, knowing what Porsche cars are like, and having gone through 5 of these cars. It's hard to sum up in a couple of words because there's so much about them, the way they handle, the way they brake, the way they accelerate, the way they sort of feel in the seat. There's just something about Porsche cars that nobody else seems to have. I bought a Porsche 911, an older one. My wife has been incredibly understanding. And it was because I got some time in a Carrera 2S, and from there it was like, I have to have one of these. The track, the car really comes to life, and you can really explore the full nature of the car. They do have so much performance. It's not just in acceleration, it's in braking, it's in handling, it's all there. So you just don't get those experiences on the street.
I've been driving Porsches, racing Porsches since 1969. When I ride with journalists and when I ride with students, they can't believe how fast a Porsche will brake, how deep they can go into a corner, put the brakes on, and get this car slowed down to make the turn. So this is what you learn in experiences like this.
You can't buy a day like today. This is an incredible facility built by a man who spared no expense, who had a vision and a dream that he wanted to create something very special for motorsports. When I got an email from the office saying, I don't suppose you'd like to go to Birmingham, Alabama and drive Porsches, I was back on the keyboard so fast to accept the invitation. No, you never get tired of a day like this because you get to meet professional drivers, talk with them. They know that most of the journalists are adequate drivers, and yet, I still think about sometimes how they sit in the passenger seat and they don't know you, so they trust you. And you have to return that trust by being as competent as you possibly can and not taking any risks.
And what was your favorite today?
It'd have to be the GT3. No question. It's a powerful car. It's a driver's car. You can feel it. You can hear it. It's a tactile experience. That's like nothing else I've ever driven in my life.
Personally, I always felt the best way to experience a Porsche is, one, to see it being made, because they truly are made unlike any other car. There's a lot of handmade aspects of the vehicle. And the second is to drive them. And if you have the opportunity to drive them in a controlled environment of a racetrack, that enhances it even more. So from all the smiles and grins and giggles and back slaps, I think the guys are having a good time.
A bunch of Porsches, a racetrack, a sunny day. Does it get any better than this? Angelina Jolie. I'll be right back.
Oh, baby. The original G was not without its warts. This week on Test Drive, the second generation, a car that promises big things. Updating a popular model is usually a source of a pretty large dilemma. If the changes are too evolutionary, there's little reason for customers to upgrade from old to new. Just ask Jaguar about that one. Conversely, if you go too far, the risk of alienating the traditional buyer base becomes a bigger problem. The secret then is to walk a fine line. In this regard, Infiniti has done a very good job with the G35's new look, as it is both bold and classy. In other words, the G hits the spot. The single biggest change to this G, looks aside, is found right here under the hood. Now, whilst this engine still displaces 3.5 litres and it is loosely based on the old engine, it is, to all intents and purposes, all new. To begin with, it's got variable valve timing. That means it puts out 306 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque, 90% of which is available as low as 2,000 RPM. And it's that fact that gives this car such a kick. The beauty of the new powertrain is the manner in which the engine and 5-speed manumatic transmission work together as a team. The ratios keep the engine at its sweet spot while delivering quick shifts that are devoid of the usual harshness. The proof is found in the acceleration times. 100k appears in 6.9 seconds, and the G turns the 80 to 120 trick in a fast 4.9 seconds. The lone quibble is with the engine's tip-in. Roll into the throttle gently and the engine still reacts as though there's a lead boot on the gas. Toning it down a tad would make for a smoother, less jerky takeoff. The back end of this G35 is somewhat of a mixed blessing. To begin with, the trunk opening is small, especially between the 6-disc CD player and the liftover. There's also no split folding rear seat. Now that was done purposely, because what happens, you've got X braces behind the rear seat. That stiffens the body. As a result, this chassis is 40% stiffer torsionally than the outgoing car, and it makes a big difference to how well the car handles. The stiffer platform gives the fully independent suspension a solid base of operations and a very European feel to its ride. On the highway, the G rides with a plush quality to it, yet when hammered through the pylons, well, it hunkers down and gets on with the business very nicely. Body roll is all but non-existent and understeer stays out until the very last moment. Indeed, it is as fast and unflustered as any BMW tested to date. The single biggest drawback with the original G35 was the quality of the interior. It really was rather abysmal. Well, it's obvious that Infiniti listened to all of the complaints, because this car, well, the interior is simply stunning. Great seats, wonderful layout and top-notch materials. You can also get some interesting equipment. For instance, there's a 9.5 gig hard drive that you can upload songs to. It's like having your own personal iPod built into the car. The rest of it, exceptionally well done and a marked improvement. Part of the reason for the handling is down to the P225 55R17 tyres and the G's proactive all-wheel drive system. mat the gas and the central coupling locks, which splits the power evenly front to rear. Once up to speed, it relaxes the split, eventually driving the rear wheels alone, which helps with fuel economy. Between the extremes, it shuttles the power around on an as-needed basis and in a completely seamless manner. Naturally, a good anti-lock system and stability and traction control systems are part of the G's makeup. The former provides short, controlled stops, while the latter keeps the car in check when the thing finally does start to come unraveled. The bold things promised by the G35's new looks come through in spades. It's got a wonderful engine, a great suspension and obviously very good handling, and it also comes with all the luxury you could want. In fact, in that aspect, it does two things very well. It is a luxury car and it is a sports car. In fact, it's so good, it's one of the few cars I've tested recently that'll give a BMW a run for its money. And that is the biggest compliment I can pay.
Michelin, a better way forward.
Barber Motorsports Park is home to the Porsche driving school. It's not by accident or the best price that has made Michelin the tire of choice for Porsche both on and off the track.
Anybody out here would love to have their name on these cars. In this case, we're more interested in the best tire and what gives us the best performance. And again, it's an all-around performance, and we're getting that from these Michelin tires.
I oversee the press fleet for Porsche cars for North America, and although there are several manufacturers that provide tires as an OE supplier for Porsche, I use the Michelins on all of the cars when the fitment is correct, because they give the most consistent performance and the most consistent wear of the tires that we have. And really, a lot of driving these cars is having the correct tires. That really adds to the performance and really shows off the cars in the best light.
Tires in any kind of a sports car are critical to its handling as well as its safety. Also, customer satisfaction is a key point. What we have found out here in this environment, the Michelin tire has been very good as far as wear, balance, no complaints from the customers and from the performance drivers that drive the cars, and the longevity of the tire is very good. On a personal car level, I still believe that from the overall safety of the vehicle and the longevity, again, you don't want to be buying tires every 6 months or every year. And we have found in the field where I work that Michelin gives us the customer satisfaction that we're looking for, especially to be associated with our brand.
On a 911 GT3, you use the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup tire, particularly sticky tire, but that is the tire that really shows off that car the best and gives it the numbers that you see in all these tests that the magazines and the shows do. They are the best tire for the car and give it the ultimate performance.
One comment, remember, we maintain our tires. We keep the air pressure set correctly, hourly, while the cars are on the track, and there's no substitute for good maintenance.
The Versa 5-door hatch started sale in July, and then at the end of January we added the sedan. So the sedan went on sale in January, and it's been selling very well. Actually in March we sold 2,201 Versas, which is the first time we've sold 2,000 of one particular model in Nissan's history. The benefit of adding the sedan is simply to broaden the appeal with consumers. So now we have both a hatch and a sedan body, because we do know in our research and talking to consumers that people do have a preference for sedan or wagon, so this broadens Versa's appeal. Versa sedan shares a lot of the same platform and same drivetrain as the hatch, but it does add, of course, a very large trunk, which is almost the same size as some mid-size vehicles, and a much larger interior volume as well. We'd see the competitors as being products from Honda, like the Fit, and from Toyota, the Yaris. But we feel have a very competitive price product, and much larger than those vehicles, both in terms of interior space and our cargo room, and a very high level of standard equipment, especially safety equipment. We have side impact airbags, dual front impact airbags, and also curtain airbags as well. It has a 1.8 liter engine with 122 horsepower, which is a lot more than vehicles typically in that competitive group. So most of them have 106, 109. So the 122 horsepower really contributes to Versa's fun to drive personality. And we also have our torque curve is such that we have 127 pound-feet of torque, but 90% of that's available from 2,400 RPM. So it's got a very desirable torque curve, which makes it a fun to drive car, and at the same time it's very fuel efficient. Our expectation is we'll probably sell about 60% hatch and 40% sedan. It's too early to tell in the sedan being on sale whether we'll achieve that or not, but that's our expectation.
Things going well for this company right now?
Yeah, things are going very well.
We're back here at the Barber Motorsports Park just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, driving all the new 07 Porsche sports cars. Now, each of us got 3 laps in each vehicle with a professional driver beside us. But hey, I don't know the vehicle, I don't know the track, and I'm a long way from being called a professional driver. For me, the biggest thrill is at the end of the day when I get in the passenger seat and we get a hot lap with a guy like Hurley Haywood behind the wheel. Then we find out what these vehicles are all about. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Well, Brad, there's a lot of things you and I are on the same page on, but this is not one of them. I'd rather be behind the wheel, I'll tell you. And I think the most fun I've ever had was at Powell Motorsports School at Mossport years ago, chasing Robin Buck and Claude Poirier and Jeff, who's with Toyota now, around the track at Mossport with two-way radios in Corvettes. And if you were about to make a mistake, they were on the radio yelling at you. If you're going to miss the apex or clipping point of the turn, they were yelling at you, turn it in, turn it in, turn it in. But man, it was a lot of fun, I'll tell you. So sorry, Brad. Anyhow, this week I want to talk about oil and coolant and the things that are keeping your engine alive. And you know, if those Porsches that you're talking about, Brad, on the track, you definitely want to have a synthetic motor oil in those cars, a motor oil designed for high RPM, such a high output engine, highly stressed engine. And all the engines in modern vehicles are more and more stressed each year. Engineers are leaning on them harder than they ever have to produce more power out of less displacement at higher RPM. And when they do that, motor oils have had to improve drastically over the years and kept pace with the engineering that's going into the powertrains of those vehicles. And they've more than kept pace. Now, on a typical vehicle, this is an older pickup truck, my own, we've got 17 liters of coolant keeping the engine from overheating and about 5.5 or 6 liters of motor oil keeping the engine alive and giving it the lubrication protection and cooling the pistons in that engine to keep it alive. This particular motor oil is a 5W30 viscosity, but a 1030 would also be appropriate for this older truck. We've got a choice of 2. Now on newer vehicles, you might be looking at a 5W20 motor oil, or for example in hybrids, a 0W20. Now these numbers refer to the viscosity or thickness of the oil. This oil pours like a 5 when it's cold and protects like a 30 when it's hot. Now, the filter that you change every time you change the oil in your engine is also very important, and things have changed a lot there over the years. There's the size of filter that would have been on this early 90s truck, a huge one like that. If I went out to replace this truck right now with another V8 pickup truck, it'd have a filter of that size. The filters have shrunk because the engines are more precise now. They burn the fuel a lot cleaner. They don't foul the oil as much, so they don't need as much filter capacity. And for packaging reasons, they've shrunk the filter for passing parts through like the front drive shaft on a 4-wheel drive truck. But inside that filter, there's a paper media filter just like this one. This is from a modern 2.2 liter Ecotec engine. That's what the filter would look like. Every time you change the oil, change the filter. Most times your appropriate change interval is about 5,000 kilometers, but consult your owner's manual and don't drive by that stop sign, the oil change interval. Make sure you change the oil, use quality products, make sure they're recycled. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2007.
Now, regular viewers will know what I think of the Porsche Cayenne, a 6,000-pound truck with a Porsche badge on it. Fortunately, Porsche understands that the heart and soul of its company is sports cars. We're here at the Barber Motorsport Park in Birmingham, Alabama, and this is where Porsche has their driving school. Porsche owners, or in most cases, non-Porsche owners, can come here and drive these beautiful sports cars on this fabulous racetrack and learn how to handle the cars properly. Now, you know, if you're building a really high-performance car, you really have a bit of a responsibility to your owners to make sure they don't kill themselves the first time they get in it. In the old days, particularly 911 turbos, well, about a quarter of those things ended up in the ditch in the first week because they're very difficult cars to drive. Now, the new Porsches, the Cayman is right here. We've got a 911 turbo ahead of us. We've got the new the 911 four-wheel drive Targa, and the beautiful Boxster in yellow over there. These cars are much easier to drive than they used to be, but still, to get the most out of them, you really got to know how to handle them. Porsche has a long history in motorsport. They've got some of their great drivers, including Canadian Keith Narop from Kelowna, BC, who are teaching the students how to really handle their cars properly. And believe me, when you get one of these things going real quickly on a corner, you understand why Porsches cost as much as they do. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, as they say, all good things must come to an end, and what a day it has been getting behind the wheel of all the 07 Porsche sports cars here at the track. Which one would I take home? Well, it's my favorite Porsche ever since it was introduced, the Cayman. I mean, it even made me look like I knew what I was doing out on the track today. It is that forgiving. As for the king of the castle, the GT3, it was a thrill. It was overwhelming, as in, wow. But you know, one thing I did learn today, if you do own a Porsche, do yourself a favor, get it off the highway and get it onto the track and really discover the vehicle that you paid for. These Porsches really are a marvel of engineering. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Bentley has always been a manufacturer of very well-made vehicles that are for a certain type of customer, and the Continental range was essentially a way for us to bring this Bentley brand to a customer which might not want necessarily to have the top-of-the-line range of Bentley.
TSN's Motoring 2007 has been brought to you by Q from Quaker State, Unleash All Your Horses, and Michelin, a better way forward.